So we're going to talk about empowerment. And so, this topic, as you know, until recently, I've done many leadership trainings for organizations around the country and some around the world over the last 25 years. And I always do in the opening session a leadership challenges exercise because I like to get the entire room to recognize that everybody struggles with stuff, that nobody is perfect, nobody has it all figured out, and everybody's just trying to figure it out as they go through their work in growing and developing and leading people and trying to accomplish something. One thing that shows up, now there are multiple things that show up all the time, but one in particular shows up practically in every leadership challenge exercise I've ever done, and that is, what do I do with someone who's not motivated? Or how do I motivate someone? Which is a classic question, which I always have a little fun with. I won't be able to have as much fun for the sake of time this morning. But the reality is that this question is not a real question, because the idea that you can motivate another human is completely a myth. Human beings are already motivated. The question is, for what are they motivated? And it's a leader's job to discern that and to find that, and then to help them see the path to accomplishing what they're motivated for. It's not to motivate, and you'll understand what I'm talking about in a moment. And so you might think, well, how does that tie to this topic? Well, I'm going to define three different things for you that sort of all matter interrelated. The first is motivation. How do you define motivation? It is the reason or reasons one has for acting or behaving in a particular way. That's what a motivation is. So you can already tell that's internal. That's coming from them. That's about them, right? So the second word is inspire. And so the thing about motivation to recognize is it's highly changeable. Right? It can change quite a bit over your lifetimes. And you know that because your motivations have changed in your life. To inspire is to fill someone with the urge to do something. Now, inspiring is temporary. It's useful, but it's temporary. We've all heard a message that lit us up in our life, or had an experience that lit us up. Right? Or maybe we went to a seminar on a Sunday and we were like, yes, I feel incredible. This is great. And then we wake up Monday morning and we're back in the real world. And all that inspiration we just had, we're looking all around. Where is that? Where is that feeling I had yesterday? That was great, because it's temporary. Without action, it's going to be irrelevant. The third word is our focus this morning, and that's the word empower. And empower is to make someone stronger or more confident. That's why it's a leadership topic. Right now, there is another aspect of empowering, and that is when you give someone power through giving them authority, right? Which happens often in the workplace. If you have risen to a position of being a leader, you've been granted authority, which means you have been empowered in a certain way. You have power over others. That's not necessarily a good thing, right? Giving someone power only makes them more of what they already are, just like money. And so if someone is not developed and they don't have the right heart and you give them power, you now have a tyrant on your hands. If you have someone with a heart who understands how important it is that they actually have this power, now you've got someone that might do some good with it. We're not talking about that kind of power. We're talking about the lasting kind of power, the enduring, sustainable kind of empowering. And that is to help someone become stronger and more confident. Because I do not believe in teaching anything that is not sustainable. I do not believe the things of value in life can be accomplished in a blink of an eye. I just have never seen it, and so I don't believe it. Granted, maybe my belief system's messed up, but I don't think so. I figure in almost 63 years, I would have seen something that would have shown me that that could happen, but I have not. So when we move into it, we have to understand that in order to empower someone, especially in leadership, trust is at the center of this. You cannot empower someone who does not trust you, because there is a very fine line between the perception of manipulation versus attempting to motivate, right? Because that's how someone is going to feel an effort to empower if you are simply encouraging them without having done the work. You have to do the work. And so, and you know what? It's not anybody's fault that this is the case. So you may be the most trusting, caring, awesome, incredible leader ever, but you cannot control what's happened in the person you are attempting to lead's life up to the point they met you. And their entire perspective, their lens, has been conditioned in their life. And it's been conditioned, unfortunately, relatively negative. And then you throw in the culture, right? What do we see around us? We don't see servant hearts. We just don't, not enough. We see people taking advantage of people, trying to squeeze every drop out of someone. And that's how you're going to be seen if you don't do it properly. And I'm going to give you a formula for doing it properly because I like to give you a little formulas. But first you have to understand the mindset of how this takes place and recognize that it's a process that you're going to work with people. So first I got to show you a couple of my famous little slides. So my first one is the credibility curve, right? So it's all built on trust. If you haven't seen this before, anytime I teach leadership, this is the platform for leadership. It's based on your competencies. That's the first C. Your character is the second C. And then this third C out here is credibility. Those are the two things that form your credibility. The basis for trust is your credibility. Credibility is a trust. You cannot walk into a room or into a situation and say to someone, trust me. That will never work. You have to become someone that it's impossible not to trust. And that only happens through time, experience, and operating in the right way. That comes from demonstrating true character. It comes from showing people that you care. But that's how that happens. And that leads me to the second thing that I'm going to show you, right, which is the positioning. All right. So this is the classic pyramid. I tend to show this again in every leadership session that I do to help people understand the mindset, right? As you climb in leadership, people are responsible to you. You have authority over them. That's great, but it's a power structure. I don't believe in the mindset of the structure. I think authority chains are important in different settings because of the nature of information and people's experience and what they can handle and what they know. So yes, there are times when it's better for certain people not to know things in a structure, right? But the reality is the mindset of every leader should be this. Here I am at the bottom. I will do whatever it takes to serve and develop the people in the organization. They actually are above me, not below me. And so I am here to help them be better. That is the responsibility of a leader. The responsibility of a leader is to make people the best they possibly can become in your charge. If you bring out the best in people, if you help people to grow, everything else will take care of itself. But if you squash people in the name of profits, you have done something short term that will never last. And all you have to do is look at history and you will see that anything built purely on power fails eventually because people will not tolerate it over time. The best people will leave if they don't rebel first. And so that is the mindset in which I teach you this. Right? This is about how to empower people to grow and serve them in that growth. There are things that are done all the time in organizations that are short-term motivators, right? Maybe they run contests or they have awards, right? Those things are short-term motivators. They are not sustainable. Why? Because they have a finish line, right? And then also fear is often used. Fear is often used as a motivator. Just think back to what I said a moment ago. Fear is not a sustainable motivator. The best people will never tolerate it. They will leave and they will go somewhere else, right? We must empower people to become their best and take the actions that are in their best interest in order to grow, and we must support that in happening. So I'm going to give you just a couple little nuggets here from what is a long list. Again, in a workshop, the actual work of this is best done in a workshop, because I prefer to have you to be thinking about these things and then drawing them out and discussing them. That's the best way to learn. But this type of session does not lend itself to that unless we only did one tiny piece of it. And I want to give you something that you can ponder and think about, and formula that you can use. So if you think about what can you do in leadership to inspire and empower, because those two things go together. Actually, if you look at the three words I used earlier, motivation, inspiration, empowerment, they sort of lead one to the other, right? Someone can be motivated to figure something out or to accomplish something, but they're not inspired. As a matter of fact, I'm sure you've been there in your life, and maybe you're there now in some capacity, where you have motivation to do something, but you're not inspired because you don't feel like you can. You feel like maybe there's a block in your way, or there's something that maybe you're not good enough, or whatever your running scripts are in your mind. But someone who comes along and inspires you through a message or a story, right? Something that makes you go, oh, they breed hope in you. Suddenly that motivation comes to life. But it then becomes wasted unless someone comes underneath of it and empowers you through helping you understand how to accomplish it, by giving you confidence and support, etc. And so some of the things that are powerful in inspiration and empowerment, right? Because those two things are both in a leader's wheelhouse, right? Inspiring and empowering are both important traits. Inspiring is actually not that difficult once you understand it, which is why I defined it for you. Empowerment is much more of a process. You can inspire someone in 10 minutes, but you can't empower them in 10 minutes. That's an entirely different thing. And I'm teaching you a long-term skill set here that you work on. But some of the things that do this is to help someone understand what's actually possible for them. That takes a little time, and I'm going to show you something about that here in a few moments. Help them see their strengths and how they might translate into their work. This is really important, because most people, if you say, and I know because I've done this exercise with thousands of people, if I say, why don't you make a list of your weaknesses? They'll be writing so fast that they'll run out of ink. I say, now make a list of your strengths. They're scratching their head. Why? Because nobody has helped them uncover them, right? People have they've spent their entire life being told what they're not and what they can't do, not who they are and what might be possible for them. So when you bring that to someone and they trust you, right? Trust has to be in place for this to be a real thing. That becomes a powerful elixir for that person. In leadership, delegation is a way to empower someone, right? Because it's showing that you truly do believe that they can do something, so much so that you are sharing responsibility with them, right? One of the challenges in delegation and leadership is you get to delegate the activity, but you don't get to delegate the result. You still stay responsible for it. So it really is a trust on your part as well. Sharing stories. The entire second half of our session today is going to be about that. And so even if you are just tuning in because you wanted to get some insight for your leadership, because I know that some people join us for the sake on these sessions, specifically for their career, who aren't even part of our community, that part might be of value for you if you'd like to stay on. You're welcome to. But sharing stories is a powerful thing in empowerment and inspiration. You have to be a little measured about what you share, right? So it's important to share your story as a leader, because there is this significant gap between this person in your charge who's looking at you as someone who knows everything, can do everything, makes it look easy, and this person who's just trying to figure out how to do a little thing. And they can't imagine they could ever be like you. That's disempowering. And so it's so important that you authentically share what I call your old shoes, right? Your old shoes are your struggles and what you messed up and how you were worried about something, or how you made a mistake, or what your difficulties in growing through it, or how it was when you first started, right? I'll give you an example. If someone sees me present in front of a room, especially a big room. The bigger the room, look out. It's just how God built me, right? But if they see me do that, they might say, well, I could never present in front of a room, because they see me now. They didn't see me when I had one person in my living room and I was cowering in my kitchen, terrified to go out and speak. And when I did, I didn't know what to do. That I did that over and over and over and over and over and over and over in the same state of terror for multiple years before all of a sudden it got easier. They never saw that. They see now. That's what someone sees, right? You, in leadership, you do not look like what you have been through. You look like you look now. And so you have to close that gap by opening yourself up and sharing your journey with people. That inspires them. That gives them hope. That gives them understanding that, oh, okay, maybe I can, right? Now, you can't control someone's willingness to walk through their own fires. That's not on you. It's their life. But in leadership, it's your job to give them every opportunity possible. You can also share stories of others, but I would be very careful here, because comparison is not very friendly in life. So if you're going to share a comparative story for someone, make sure you pick something that is relevant to this person, not just some story of someone who rose out of the ashes and accomplished something mighty, right? Because that again becomes, well, that's too big. I can't connect to that, right? So you got to be a little conscious of this. You have to be real and vulnerable. I share practically everything. The people I work with, the people I've led in my life, the people I've spoke to from stages, they've heard stuff about me that some of my friends don't even know, because my friends have never been in the situation for me to share that, because I am not afraid to share everything that's made me what I am today, whether that's good or bad, because that's my journey. And we should be unabashed in sharing our journey with people. We should share our vulnerabilities and share our challenges, because those inspire people. They help them understand, oh, I can overcome too. That is empowering. So the other, of course, would be to train someone, right? Because that's showing them and helping them develop confidence. Confidence comes from competence. It doesn't come from anything else. Only competence breeds confidence, period. And then coaching, that's an investment of time, which I'm going to talk about just in a moment. And then maybe the biggest one of all of these is listen to someone. Listen to them. That is such an empowering thing for someone. It shows that you value them. So I'm going to walk you through the 3-step formula here in the last 10 minutes of this segment. But before I do, I'm going to show you something that I brought up in the questions session we had. Might have been last month. I don't remember when we did the question session, but that's recorded. I'll refer back to it in a moment. Trust, understood, input. This is the pathway for connection with another human being, right? Too often, right, what we do is we listen to somebody and then we give them input. We listen for like 10 seconds, and then we give them input. That's not how it works, right? Trust, understood, input. This is the pathway of deep connection, and to be in a situation where someone will truly be grateful for and consider whatever you have to share. I'll come back to that as we work through this. So step 1 in this formula is to consistently invest time in them. You will never empower someone with a flyby, you can do it. That is meaningless, right? You must truly invest time in them, because when you invest time in someone, that, by the way, you can attach that to trust. So this is where the trust happens, right? The trust begins to happen with the time investment. You are demonstrating you actually care. You can't say you care about someone. You have to care about them. You can't say, I care about you. Nobody cares what you say. They're only going to care what you do. And so you actually have to demonstrate caring, and a way you do that is contribute your time. You're also showing them they're worth your time. That is a very important thing because they're not getting that other places. They've gotten that in very few places in their life. You're also showing them you expect them to succeed. That's what it's telling them. I wouldn't be investing time in you if I didn't expect you to be awesome. Why would I do that, right? I'm in a leadership position. I would go do it with somebody else. You see, it's speaking for you through this action, and it's demonstrating your belief in them. Remember, you cannot microwave trust. You cannot microwave anything of value, but you definitely can't microwave trust. And you can't command that someone trusts you, and you can't command that someone gives high performance, especially in today's workforce. Whatever the minimum bar is, you can't command more of that, right? You have to create an environment where someone wouldn't even accept of themselves doing any more than better than that, right? That's on you as a leader. And so you have to recognize that this is part of what I call belief algebra. And this is very human. Everything I teach is human. It's just human fundamentals. The way belief algebra works is first somebody believes in you. That's the first thing. And that's what you're demonstrating here through step one, is you're demonstrating that you believe in them. And at that point, at the beginning of this, when the trust is minor, it might not matter. I mean, it might take a little while for this person to get it, but you're still demonstrating you believe in them. Then what occurs is eventually they begin to believe in you. This is a big part of the equation, right? So you believe in them, and then they begin to believe in you. And the more they begin to believe in you, the third piece of the equation happens. Subsequently, because you believe in them and they believe in you, they begin to believe in them. That's how this works. You can't shortcut it. That is the absolute process. Now, I have to talk just for a moment about beliefs because it's important. You know, what is a belief? A belief is nothing more than a thought that you continue to think. It doesn't make it true. You only act as if it's true, but it doesn't make it true. Lots of people thought the world was flat. I don't think it is. But just because they thought it was flat, they didn't make it flat, right? There's a lot of beliefs like that. So I want to show you something I call the belief cycle, right? This is a very real thing. What you think determines what you believe. You already know this, and you really know the second part of this, and you don't like the second part because it's going to expose things in you, right? What you believe determines what you choose, right or wrong. If you don't believe you're good enough to do something, what happens? You choose not to do it. And then when you get a little more wiser in life and a little more experience, you look back and you go, I could have done that. Why? Because now you're actually evolved into the person you would have become if you did it in the first place. But now it's well past when you could have done it. That's the breeding ground for regret. So what you believe determines what you choose. And what you choose then determines the actions you'll take. And the actions you take will determine the results you get in life, which will begin to shift your thinking, which brings on new beliefs. That cycle is as true as the sky is blue, and we control that. So if there is a belief about yourself, this is just a side nugget that's getting in your way, do some work because it's not real. It's you just adopting that thought and continuing to reinforce it. You can disrupt that. So that's step one, consistently invest time in them. Step two is learn the important things, all right? So that comes to understood. You need to understand this person, or they need to feel understood. And so you do this in leadership through observation, of course, but through communication, through connection, through relationship, right? Everything involves two parts. In a workplace or building a business, the task at hand and the relationships involved. You cannot have one sustainably without the other. You must have both. You can't just say, let's get the job done. You got to care about the person. You got to foster the relationship. And certainly, if you ever want to empower people to really grow and develop and become what they can become, and let me tell you, the way to grow any organization is to grow the people, period. You grow people, you grow anything. And so there's a couple things here that you got to consider. Think about things like what's important to them. Who is important to them? What are their interests outside of work? What are they afraid of? What are their past fears and struggles? I love to get this. I love to get this. I like to know, what have you been through in life? Don't tell me about your trophies. I want to know where you fell off the edge. I want to know where you were crying. I want to know where it hurt. That's what I want to know. I want to know what you've been through, because that's going to tell me a little bit about your moral fiber. That's going to tell me about how strong you can be, because anything that stretches you requires you to push right into something you don't necessarily want to do. That's the nature of life. Everything that you really want in your life to be better sits right outside of where you're comfortable. That's right, right outside of where you're comfortable, which means that's where you're a little uncomfortable, and you can translate that into a little bit afraid, right? A little bit afraid. What are their strengths? You want to learn that. What are their weaknesses to help them offset them? What are their goals? What are they motivated for? What are their past accomplishments? Because that tells you something they pushed through. That becomes a little monument we can point back to. And how do they communicate, right? So in the questions session, I put two things, and these two things were in there. Listen, pause, ask, right? That's how you operate a discussion. Focus, clarify, paraphrase, and then ask again, right? That little formula, I don't have time to go through that right now. If you did not see that session, it sits on YouTube. It's the open questions. Open questions are the key here. It's on YouTube. It's also in our community under the personal and professional development guides, recorded. If you saw it once, you probably couldn't watch that too many times. Until you become natural at asking the right open questions, you need to train it and practice it, train it and practice it. It is a superpower, right? Just telling you. And it's super powerful in this particular area. All right, the third thing is, and the last part of the formula, is what I call connecting the dots. All right, so connecting the dots is that input part. Where did I put that, right? So first, you invest time in them. Second, you understand what's important. And then third, you connect the dots, because now your input matters. See, until you've built relationship, whatever you have to say to this person above and beyond your level of authority, they could care less about, because they don't trust you. They think you just want them to do a good job because it'll make you look good. That's what they're thinking. That's how they're conditioned. And occasionally that won't be the case, but you can assume it is, right? If it's not the case, you can be pleasantly surprised, right? Prepare for the worst, always. So what does it mean to connect the dots? So this is a really, really cool little concept. So think about their role, right? Their role in the organization. And the lower down an organization it is, the more that person thinks their job is not important. That's what they think. Who cares, right? I'll tell a quick story before I go further here. So yesterday I was on a Zoom with someone who I'd done a keynote for a couple years ago, and two people who were interested in our program, and we're having a conversation. And he told the story, because he runs restaurants, about how I had talked, when I talked to his group that night, it was a function around the holidays. I talked about how one of my first jobs was a dishwasher. Right. And that I got my start in a dishwasher. And when you're a dishwasher, you think you're the lowliest person on the planet, right? Because you're cleaning the toilets and you're doing all the nasty work in a restaurant. And then I related to that group how important, nobody told me this then, but I know it now, how important that job was. How important is it that that restaurant's toilets are clean? How important is it that those dishes are clean? How important? It's everything, right? If you go to a restaurant and you get a plate of food on a dirty dish, how are you going to feel about that? Are you looking forward to coming back? I don't think so. If you go in the bathroom and it's a disaster, how do you feel about that? Probably not good. But if everything is spotless, you're like, this feels good. So I related that experience. He said that the people in the kitchen are still talking about that session today. They're still talking about it because it made them realize how important their job actually is. People want to feel like they're doing something of value. They want to feel like they're making a contribution. So here's their role, right? And so whatever their role is in your organization, right, it has an impact on the team. They should know that, and they should know how important it is to the team. And then the team should know, and they should know how important the team's role is to the client. They need to know how important it is to the client. That gives them ownership. That makes them take pride in their work. That makes them want to do a better job because that affects the company. And how whatever happens in the company, the growth of a company, the success of a company, who does that impact? This person, by creating new opportunity. That's how it works. But if you don't connect the dots for someone they don't know, and let's recognize, right? Not everybody is driven by the same things, right? So especially in any type of organizational or corporate setting, we have to recognize that not everybody wants to become the chief. Not everybody wants to become the star. Not everybody's career oriented. Let's say someone loves the video game. This is a classic example of someone that you might look at and say, well, they're not motivated. They kind of come into work and they just kind of go about their business and they're just doing their thing. And they're kind of not performing high, but not performing so bad you have to replace them. And I'm not just pointing out someone doing video games. I'm using an example. But when the 4:30 hits, they are flying out the door, right? They're the most motivated looking person you've ever seen when the day is over. Well, that's a clue, right? Why? Because they're going to get home and do something they want to do. So maybe they don't care about becoming an executive vice president in your company, but they might care a whole lot about being able to go to a better gaming convention, or about getting a better gaming system, or a new gaming chair, or maybe even be able to game full time in the future. And so if you don't know that, then you don't have any way to connect the dots for that person. That you doing the best job you can helps the team, helps the client, helps the company, and helps you go to a gaming convention, or it helps you get a better gaming system. Do you see what I'm saying? It could be anything. I just used a gamer because it's the first thing that came to my mind. And so we have to recognize that everybody wants to feel like they matter. Everybody. Nobody wakes up in the morning and says, how can I be the biggest slug possible today? How can I make it through the day without doing one thing productive that I would feel good about? Nobody. So if they're behaving that way, if we're a leader, we need to go look in the mirror and say, what am I not doing? What am I not learning? How am I not helping this person? Leaders look in the mirror. They only look out the window when things are going good. That's when they look out the window and say, hey, who can I give credit to? Not me. I don't want the credit. As a leader, you don't want the credit. You don't need the credit. They need the credit. So I hope that was helpful for you from an empowerment perspective. That's the end of part one. We're going to now move into our team session for the day.